Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how I painted this aerial beach scene using acrylic paint. So be sure to grab your paints and brushes and follow along with me if you'd like to. I only used 3 brushes and they were a flat brush, a round brush and a smaller detail brush, and I'll have all the brushes and materials linked in the description box below for you. So just make sure you have a cup of water and some tissue paper, and that's it. Let's get started. So I began by taping my paper down with some washi tape, and the paper I'm using is the Daler Rowney acrylic paper, which is 230 grams, and I really like it because it's thick enough so that it doesn't warp when you add your paint and water onto it, and it has a really nice texture. So to paint the sea, the colours I used were titanium white, brilliant blue, primary cyan, turquoise blue, phthalo blue and black. And I just went ahead and I wet my brush slightly and I dipped into the brilliant blue, and all I did was map out a rough line of where my shoreline would end before I started to colour block the different dark and light areas. So for the darker areas I used primary cyan and phthalo blue, and the lighter areas I mixed a combination of brilliant blue with turquoise blue and into some titanium white, and I blended it out a little roughly. Don't worry about getting a perfect blend at this point because this is your first layer of paint and you'll be adding more on top, so it doesn't really matter at this point. After getting that first layer of paint on, all I did was add some black paint, and I made sure that my brush was a little wet because this helped the black paint flow a lot better. And I applied it into the areas that were going to have deeper waters, and because it was wet, when I added my brilliant blue on top, it blended out really nicely and I was able to get that really dark ultramarine colour. Using the same black paint on my brush, I mapped out where the rising tides and waves were going to be, and I blended it out the exact same way. And whatever was left on my brush, I used to lightly tap into the blue, and this gave the illusion of shadows playing across the water surface. So using some titanium white and whatever blue was left on my brush, I started to fade out the water towards the centre of the page, and this is basically where the shallower water was going to meet the beach surface. To get some highlights onto the water, all I did was use a clean wet brush, and I picked up some titanium white on the edge of my flat brush, and while it was wet, I tapped it onto the surface and created random S-like curves and strokes. And the reason why this works so well with acrylics, or I find that this technique works really well for me at least, is because acrylics have this tendency to sink back into themselves as they dry. And so although it might seem scary, or you might be afraid that you've ruined your painting because the white looks really bright onto the surface, as it dries it will fade in and sit back or sink into the page, and you'll be left with a really nice faded highlight. And these highlights can be as random as you like, so just have fun with it. I mean, what I love about painting the sea is that it doesn't have to be completely perfect. I mean, I'm sure if you'd like it to be, it can, but personally for me, I really like to get a general idea for my reference photo for where things are going to be, and then I just let go and I let my brush do the talking. It's just a creative outlet and it feels so relaxing. And by the way, I'll have the reference photo link below in the description box as well if you'd like to see. So all I did was I continued to layer the watered down white paint, and I did the same with some brilliant blue and phthalo blue. And this layering is what helped to create that depth and dimension to the water. And keep in mind, what's different when it comes to painting aerial ocean views is that you're actually going to be painting highlights and shadows mostly. You're not going to have as many midtones, because when you think about it, what you see from the top is you're going to see the peaks and valleys of the water that's flowing, or the waves or the ripples, and so you're not going to have as much blended midtones. And to create the sea foam, all I did was I got titanium white onto my brush and I stippled it on in random motion in order to get that foamy and splattered effect. And to give the sea foam some more dimension, all I did was I got my brush, made sure it was dry, and I used some brilliant blue and turquoise blue, and I just stippled it on while the brush was dry, and this just gave it a bit more dimension and depth. And guys, I'm really sorry, but my camera died while I painted the sand. But all I did was I used some burnt sienna and I mixed it into some Naples yellow red. And I just blended it out, and the darker part was towards where the water was, because that was where the wet sand was. And I faded it out into a lighter Naples yellow red and titanium white towards the end of the page. And don't worry too much about the sand, because you're going to be painting people on top of it later on. So to create those S-curves on the water surface, all you need to do is just pick up some titanium white paint, make sure your brush is wet, and I used the fine brush for this, and all you do is you hold it from the side and you just roll it across the surface. So it's just random movement, and this will just take practice, and don't worry about making a mistake, because when you layer it, any mistake that you've made will probably get covered up by the blues and the turquoise and everything. Towards the shoreline, to lighten out my water and thin it out, in some of the areas after I added the white sea foam, I went back in with some yellow Naples red and I brushed it on just to make it look like the sand was showing through the water. And some areas on the sand I actually left with that light blue, because it also made it look like there was water on that sand, and it made it look like there was a reflection of the sky as well. And I don't like wasting my paint, so to create the people, all I did was I got my detail brush, I made sure that it was really clean and the point was really sharp, and whatever paint that was in my cap for each colour, I used it and I just dotted it onto the sand and water. And you can use any colour you like, you don't have to limit yourself to what's in the reference photo or what I used. And for the hair or the tops of their heads, I used black or brown or yellow paint, and I just did it randomly, like it wasn't anything specific. And for the people in the water, I just used the Naples yellow red and I made little strokes, and then I just dotted their heads in the same exact way. And you can always let your imagination run free. I mean, instead of painting people, you might want to paint colourful umbrellas, or you might want to paint sailboats in the water, or you might even want to leave it empty and just do like an aerial view of the ocean. So it's your painting and it can be anything you want it to be. So I hope you enjoyed this and you learned something new maybe, or you just had fun painting along with me. Comment below what you'd like to see me paint next, and if you do recreate this, be sure to tag me on Instagram. I'd love to see your recreations and I'd love to share them as well on my page. So thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.